My insurance company denied my claim after I paid premiums for 20 years, so I burned down their houses. 20 years. That's how long I've been paying insurance to a local company without missing a single payment. They promised to be there when I needed them, sent birthday cards calling me their valued member, even gave me a 20-year loyalty pin. But when disaster struck, I learned their promises were worth less than the cheap metal they were printed on. When my house burned down, I was sad, but also happy that I had prepared for this and gotten insurance. But when I contacted them about my claim, they told me to sit tight and wait for an adjuster. I thought this would be a formality, especially since this was the first time I needed their help in 20 years, but I couldn't be more wrong. 3 days later, adjuster Craig showed up. He spent exactly 12 minutes looking at the burnt remains, took a few photos with his phone, and said he'd send an email within 2 weeks. Why 2 weeks? The fire department already confirmed it was electrical, I asked him. Craig looked offended and replied, "We need to investigate. Don't interfere with my job or I'll deny your claim." I backed off and waited patiently, but 2 weeks soon turned into 6. First, they demanded receipts for every item lost, including furniture bought 15 years ago, electronics from defunct stores, and artwork given as gifts. That's when I realized that my claim could actually be denied, and panicked. I spent entire nights reconstructing my life on paper and calling companies that no longer existed. Craig came back and asked me so many questions I thought I might pass out from the stress. "Why don't you have photos of your attic's contents? Can you prove the water damages from firefighters? Where are the serial numbers for this TV bought in 2009? I answered everything, and he left, assuring me that everything would be taken care of. Then 3 months after losing everything, after submitting 400 pages of documents, after I'd maxed out credit cards to survive, I got their final letter. Upon careful review, we've determined the fire damage exceeds coverage limits due to undervaluation of property. Furthermore, our investigation suggests negligent maintenance of electrical systems. You're not covered. Read the fine print. 20 years of premiums totaling $200,000 paid faithfully, and yet they'd found their loophole. Craig's signature sat at the bottom, the same man who'd promised help while standing in my home's ashes. That's when something inside me shifted from desperation to cold clarity. If they wanted to play with fine print, I'd show them what details really meant. I started investigating the company just like they'd investigated my claim, except I found real evidence. Within an hour, I came across 20 other denied claims in the same year. Families destroyed, dreams crushed, all featuring adjusters like Craig, making identical promises before identical betrayals. I discovered their pattern. They would target major losses where documentation would be destroyed, demand impossible proof, delay until people get desperate, and then deny using obscure clauses. They even had scripts for wearing people down and algorithms for finding loopholes. So I knew exactly what to do. First, I located where Craig lived. He had personally denied over 70 claims in his life, and from the bonuses he got, he built a mansion on the outskirts of our small town. I bought both gasoline and kerosene in large quantities from an out-of-town vendor, and then used the cover of night to burn his house down. The flames were like heaven for my eyes. I watched as Craig ran out screaming and crying with half his shirt missing. He sobbed on the ground about how he lost everything, and then I saw his eyes lit up when he realized he had insurance. A few days later, he filed a claim with the same company he worked at, and this is when my real revenge started. I fabricated some emails between Craig and a partner who supplied him with the materials, talking about how they were going to scam his own company. His plan was to burn his house down, win the claims using inside knowledge, and then move to another city to live happily ever after. I sent those emails to the police anonymously, and sure enough, he was arrested and taken to a trial. Craig was panicking and kept screaming, "That is a lie! I'm being framed! I would never burn down my own house." But guess what? The countless people that he had screwed over showed up at the court hearing, asking for his conviction. They all held signs calling Craig a scumbag and even pelted tomatoes at his head. We lived in a small town where judges were sympathetic and kind, so when the judge for this case heard these complaints, he instantly viewed Craig as a criminal and sentenced him to several years in prison for arson and fraud. When he was being taken away, he noticed me smiling and standing at the back of the courtroom and his eyes lit up. You did this! He's the one who framed me!" He thrashed around in handcuffs and started accusing me, but no one believed him. I went home that day and canceled my insurance before buying a small condo and slowly rebuilding my life. Sometimes I send Craig letters asking if he's suffering in prison. So far, I have never gotten a reply back.